In this video, we're going to be taking a look at one of my best-selling products, especially when we had our retail store in Fort Smith, Arkansas. But this is a great product to sell at like farmers markets and flea markets and things because it's an inexpensive item, relatively inexpensive. But it's just something that the type of people that go to these farmers markets really like. And I'm going to show you just one version. Now, the plans that we have available, they're just $5. The plans that we have available, we have several different configurations. Today, we're going to be using the smaller bin that is a 2-tier version, but we have a 3-tier version, and we also have a 2- and 3-tier version of a bigger bin, and also a configuration where we use 2 bins and a shelf, just to make it more interesting. But at any rate, all the different configurations and sizes come in one set of plans. Like I said, it's just $5. Information on ordering plans is in the description below. Okay, so what do we got here? Well, what we've done here, this project's made entirely of fence pickets. So we're using a treated fence picket. And what I've done is I've ripped 1.5-inch wide strips. And we're going to cut 4 pieces that are 27 inches for our 2-tier model. And then what I did is I took 2 fence pickets and ripped the entire length of the fence picket down to this 1.5 inch wide. And then that leaves us this, which is roughly 4 inches wide. You can see I have a stack of them there. That's how many I got out of 2 fence pickets. I got quite a few. This dimension is 8 inches, and that angle is 15 degrees. Okay. Now, I also have all these bits and pieces. Let's see here. So you can see the thicknesses of these. They're about 1/4 inch thick. And so what I did is I took, I'm making mine 12 inches wide. And so what I did was I cut up some fence picket 12 inches wide, and I then ripped it in half at this larger dimension, at the 5.5 inch, ripped it in half. So my table saw my blade only raises up about 3 inches. So I went ahead and ripped it, and then flipped it end for end, ripped it again, and that gave us a bunch of these little strips, okay? And these I then put through the table saw again, and these are 1.75 inches wide. Now, you could just use one. See, this width, this 5.5 width fits perfectly for the bottom. So you could just use one. In my case, I ran out of the full width ones, so I'm just going to use 3 strips for the bottom of my bins here. So we actually need 6 of these. I only cut 3 extras, and then we need 2 of these strips for each side of our bin. All right, so what we're going to do first is assemble our bins, and then we'll attach them to our legs here. So let me get situated here. I do need to cut me 3 more pieces, which I think I do have material already cut. So let me get 3 more pieces, 12 inches long, and then we'll assemble that bin. All right, so you can see what I did here. I just took a couple of pieces, and I'm only putting the staple in the outside one, and I just put those there just to kind of support these little strips here, and then we'll put one right down the middle. Now this is just what I'm doing. You could move this in. You put the one in the middle first, but you could move this in and have no gap. It just really depends on what your purpose was for these bins. One thing I will point out just real quick, I am using these pressure treated boards here. Now, this exact same thing could be done out of cedar. It is slightly more expensive, but if you intend to store your fruit and veggies in them, or things of that nature, then you probably definitely want to use the cedar versus the pressure treated, because you know these chemicals for the pressure treated, you know, they obviously you don't want to be having your food come in contact with that. Okay, now for my purpose, I'm using it more for decoration, for decorative. I will have some fake fruit in there, or you know, if you wanted to put some plants in there or something like that, then definitely this would be perfectly fine to use the pressure treated. But if you're gonna be using it around food, where food would have direct contact with it, then definitely don't use that pressure treated material. Switch over to cedar. Like I said, cedar is maybe an extra $1 a stick. You know, the fence picket, a cedar fence picket is maybe about $1 more than a pressure treated one. But the same thing can be done. Just like I said, be cautious. If you're using around food, definitely use cedar. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish putting in my slats here on the bottom, and we'll move on. All right, we have our 2 bins made, so you can kind of see what that's going to look like now. And I just used 1 staple in each slat. Now these are 1.25 inch long staples, so I'm using my Ryobi narrow crown stapler, my cordless version, and that works real good. So I just use 1 staple. You could put 2 staples in, but of course if we're building these for profit, any little shortcut that we can take is good, as long as it doesn't defeat the purpose. And those staples hold really well. So now we have to go about putting them on our sticks here, our legs. And so what I've done here is I've come down and I've marked 2 inches, and then I've come down from the top and marked 15 inches on all of our legs. Okay, and all we're going to do is we're going to kind of do this number. We're just going to spread it out just like that, and I'll show you here when I get this placed exactly how this bottom is going to get lined up. So we want to line up the top just like that, and then let me get it in place here, and I'll show you exactly how to line these bins up to these 2 dimensions. This to me is kind of the trickiest part. So what we've done here is, let's just back that up a little bit. So you can see that this is now at an angle because we spread our legs apart, where we just drew a straight line. So what we're going to do is we're just going to line our bin up. All I did was just spread the legs apart. Now I've built enough of these to know about how far our legs are supposed to go apart. But all we're going to do is that edge, that bottom edge of our bin, we're going to line it up right there on that point, and then right here on this point. Okay, so we'll line that up just like that. Now, the other key position is how far do we spread our legs. But you see how the top of this slat touches the edge of this leg. If you come over here, the top of this slat is supposed to touch the leg. So you can see we're over maybe just a little bit. So you see how that touches that, and this touches that. Okay, and then up here we're right on that line, we're right on that line. So what we're going to do is pop a couple of staples in right there, and that will hold this bin in place. And then we're basically going to do the exact same thing with this bin, right? So we're going to, same thing. We're going to, but what we do want to do, and I usually just eyeball it. I've built so many of these, it's really not a big deal. But obviously, this dimension should be the same as that dimension as far as going this way. And if we line up this edge with that point right there and this point right there, then we know that it should be square. So this bin is going to be square with this bin because of our previous lines that we lined up, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get those positioned in place, and then we'll put the legs on the other side. So there you go. You can see we've got a couple of staples there, a couple of staples there, here, and here. And all we're going to do is we're just going to slide this over, bring over our other legs, and essentially do the same thing. But now we're just going to flip this over and set it on top like that, okay? Now what I am going to do is get my legs spread apart a little bit further. And like I say, we'll go ahead and position our legs where they need to be, and then go ahead and staple those on there. So let me kind of reconfigure the legs a little bit and get this position, and I'll show you what I'm talking about a little bit better. So let me just show you. So I went ahead and just sat this piece on top of my legs, and then all I did was kind of keeping in mind this pivot point right here at the top, but I came down here and just pushed this leg out so the top of this slat is on the edge of the leg. And then if you come over here and look at the top of that slat, is right there on the edge of the leg. And so now I know that on both sides they'd be the same. And if you look visually, that triangle is roughly the same as that one. So that just gives you a little bit of visual reference, if you will. So now that basket is, and you can see up here, we're right there on those lines, the top of that basket. So now we can just pop in a couple of staples to hold that one, and then we'll position this one. All right, it's starting to look like something, but there is one more step. You can see here we've got a couple of staples in there. Again, we lined our top bin here up to our 2-inch lines that we made. You do have to be a bit of a contortionist to get in here with the staple gun and add those staples on the inside here, but that's okay. You can definitely do it. Now, I do like to go ahead and add a couple of staples on the outside too. You don't necessarily have to, but I always do. Couple on the outside. Now there is one more thing, and what we want to do is we want to cut these legs off to be square. I don't know if that's the right term, but anyhow, I just take the thickness of a fence picket and draw those lines like so, and then I'll know that essentially the legs will be the exact same size. And then it should sit flat when you do that, okay? So let's go ahead and mark those. Now, I don't have it yet, but I do plan to get it. But Ryobi has a little one-handed cutoff saw now that I think would be perfect for this. But I just use my skill saw, my little cordless skill saw, and I'll nip those off, all 4 of them. And then add my staples here, and then we'll be more or less done. So there you have it. That is basically what the finished two-tier piece looks like. Now, if you find that there is a little bit of wiggle, see how it's wiggling this way? Now, I don't know that this is truly flat. Let me come out here to my, you know what I consider to be flat. I don't know that it is either, but my table saw I consider to be a good reference point. But you see how it wiggles a little bit. So it's wiggling from this corner to that corner. So I want to sand off on the bottom here the other direction. So I'll sand this foot a little bit, and I'll sand this foot a little bit, and a little goes a long way. I will say that. But get you a piece of glass is what I usually would use for this. Glass is, you know, or a piece of steel, you know, 1/4-inch steel or something, you know, that is flat. I'm guessing that my table saw is flat here. And then just take the wiggle out of that so so they do sit perfectly flat. So I think you can see these can be staged up to look pretty darn cute pretty easily, and will make for a great seller for you. So you can see here we've got it displayed with some faux fruit and some fake flowers, but you could use these little bins for anything really. You could also, instead of using fence pickets, you could use regular 3/4 inch pine if you wanted to, and do the same thing with it as well. So that's all there is to it. So again, the plans will have all the various sizes that we typically do, and we have a 3-tiered bin. We have we actually have a version where the bins are facing forward a little bit, like because I had made some of these for somebody who sold jewelry, and so they make for great vending displays as well. Another customer had little jars of jelly that they use these for. I've made them longer. These are 12-inch versions, but I've made bigger ones too that were a little bit longer. So a lot of practical uses, and they just look cute. Also, just kind of has a little 2-tiered stand. So as pricing, usually I start this one out at $15. Sometimes I'll run a special where I'll do them. They're $15, but if you buy 2, then I do 2 for $20. So sometimes I'll do that because your actual cost in this is very, very minimal, maybe $2 or $3. And when you build in bulk and cut your parts in bulk, you'll be able to knock a bunch of these out in a hurry. All right, so that's it. That's it for this one. Again, the details for ordering the plans, if you need plans, are in the listing description below. And thanks for watching.